Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the Elden Ring community reception. Before we begin this video, it is important for me to mention that I did receive an early access code so that I could give the game a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. And also, I am still currently working on the blind playthrough, which you guys will be seeing going up in the channel throughout the next month or so. I don't think I'm anywhere close to finishing the game at this point. I believe I'm about 30 hours in or so. You guys might be wondering, Rurikhan, you're not enjoying the game? You're only 30 hours in. And it's like, yeah, the reasoning behind that is real life responsibilities have been taking precedence over me recording this game. And also due to the fact that I'm actually recording it, it's not like I can just sit at home and play for 5 hours straight whenever those responsibilities are done. I have to actually be here in the studio and recording whenever I'm playing, otherwise I don't actually get to play. That's why it's taking me a little bit longer to finish the game. And at the same time, I'm savoring this game like fine wine because I enjoy these games. I like playing them. And I don't want to rush the experience just for the purpose of like, oh, I need to get to the ending. I need to do it now. I almost feel like there's this culture nowadays where whenever a game comes out, people feel the need to just like play it nonstop and like grind through every single thing that you can find in the game as fast as humanly possible so that you're done with it. It's like, I did it. I finished it. It was amazing. Yes. And so that you can kind of like join the discourse. And I'm just like, nah, I'm actually just staying clear of social media for the most part to avoid getting spoilers on stuff. And I'm just, playing the game at a leisurely pace. And that's what I'm going to be continuing doing because I'm enjoying it a lot. That's just the way that it is. But what spurred me on to make this video today was that it was brought to my attention in social media, interestingly enough. I'm not going too often to social media, but when I do, I pay attention to certain things, and this was one of the things that came up, which was the Metacritic score for Elden Ring, specifically the user Metacritic score. Now look, I don't pay too much attention when it comes to scores in video games. As a matter of fact, whenever I do a review on a video game, you guys will notice that I don't give it a score. I don't give it a number. The reason I don't do that is because I think it is tremendously reductive for this particular form of media to just, oh, I'll just slap a number on it, boom, done. It's like, oh, it's a 7 out of 10, it's an 8 out of 10. And then people immediately form an idea in their minds based around this number. I think it is much better to analyze gameplay, to talk about gameplay, to talk about visuals, to talk about, the art style, talk about everything in the game, to explain to people what this game does right, what this game does wrong. And that I consider to be much more valuable than just like, oh, I'm just slap a 9 out of 10 on it, boom, call it a day. I don't think that is particularly valuable information, which is why I usually don't pay too much attention to this. But when it comes to user score, those to me mean more than like, traditional outlet scores like IGN or Kotaku or whatever, because I always know that when it comes to these big outlets that sometimes, not always, but like in a lot of times, there might be an agenda behind it. There might be something weird going on. Sometimes you have people reviewing games, like you'll have someone whose specialty is like Fortnite, and they'll be reviewing something like a Monster Hunter, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? Come on. I mean, it's not that you can't do it, but it's that a lot of times people don't get the games they are reviewing. Doesn't appear to be the case with the reviews on here because, with the actual outlet reviews, they're just like, so friggin' massive that it's got one of the highest Metacritic scores, I believe. It was at like 97 yesterday because I did like this podcast thing, which I was like, oh wow, I'm actually surprised it's that high because, I think that the game still has problems, which I've mentioned in my video, particularly when it comes to like performance, particularly when it comes to the fact that the game, I believe, implements the nouveau. It implements easy anti-cheat, which is not necessarily something that I would consider to be particularly good because now with easy anti-cheat, I don't know how much harder that makes it for modders to actually fix some of the issues with the game, because for those of you that don't know, like with the release of the original Dark Souls, modders were actually able to fix some problems, like particularly with the resolution of the game and whatnot. But obviously, when you have an anti-cheat system involved and you have the nouveau copy protection, like all of these things make it harder for modders to do their thing. Which, whether or not we should be relying on the community to fix some of the issues of games and whatnot, that's its whole separate discussion, which is usually why I just prefer playing games on consoles. But even then, one of the things that this video is actually going to give me a chance to talk about as well is the performance of Elden Ring on PlayStation 5, because at the time that I made my video, I'd only played on PC. And since then, I've actually had an opportunity to play on PlayStation 5 as well for about 10 hours or so, so I have a good idea of some of the performance complaints that I also have when it comes to the PlayStation 5. But suffice it to say that, there are definitely some issues there, but is it enough for people to just be giving it zeros and ones like I saw on Metacritic earlier? I think that's a little bit unfair. But, this is like people protesting, and I understand, and I'm not saying that their opinions are invalid. I'm not going to be reading you the specific reviews that people have put up because I don't want to be, I don't want to be putting people in the spotlight and whatever. So I wrote down what I consider to be some of the biggest points that were brought to the forefront in both some of the Metacritic reviews that I watched as well as some of the Steam reviews that I saw. The negative ones, naturally, because that's the stuff that I'm curious about. Because from an overwhelming majority perspective, I believe that most people are enjoying the game quite a bit. I know I'm definitely among that crowd, but that's not to say that the game is perfect or the game cannot be improved in certain ways, particularly when it comes to performance. Because I specifically mentioned in my video, there are performance issues on PC. And I didn't even experience the worst of it because I saw a clip from Carnage where his game was just straight up freezing, hard lock freeze, and then he died in the middle of a freeze, and I was like, ooh, I didn't have any of that. I had some distinct frame drops in even just in the first boss, the horse guy, golden horse guy. Even on him, there were some situations where I'd be riding around with my horse, and then suddenly just the frame drops to 15 frames, and I would actually get hit because of the fact that it dropped the 15 frames for a couple of seconds, then it popped back up. And, that is obviously a problem that the game has. Now, having said that, it is also important that you realize I'm someone that I care more about gameplay than necessarily just is the game running smooth 60 all the time? If I can get 60, I'll always take 60 over 30, no questions asked. To me, the idea that some developers are oh, but we can get you native 4K 30 FPS. I'm can I get 1440p 60 instead? I'll take 1440p 60. Hell, I'll take less than 1440p to get 60 FPS. I'd rather have the frames. If you give me the choice, I will always take the frames. I'm never going to take the less frames unless those frames are redonkulously unstable or such a minor benefit that it doesn't justify it. Usually if you can give me frames, I will take those frames. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But at the same time, I'm also someone who put in over 700 hours on the Nintendo Switch version of Monster Hunter Rise. Now, is that a problem for me, the fact that the game run at 30 and in a lot of situations sub 30? No, I still enjoyed the crap out of it, so I guess I'm not in that, echelon of people that are just nah, dude, if it's not running smooth 60, I can't play it. It's literally unplayable. That ain't me. So it's if a game's got frame drops, if the gameplay is good enough, I will soldier through that, and I probably won't even be too much bothered. I'll adapt to it. It is annoying, and it is something that people shouldn't have to deal with, but it's just something that happens. So, having said that, that is actually the number one complaint from a lot of people. It's the performance. That's it. I would read these reviews and everybody was performance is garbage, performance is garbage, performance is terrible. I'm running this on a 3080 Ti. There's no way the game can run this bad on my GPU. Performance is garbage. And that's the biggest complaint. And I have to say, when it comes to PC in particular, I can imagine that that's a tough problem to solve because PC just has so much hardware available to it, particularly nowadays because of the way that the market is with PC hardware. You're going to have a lot of people that quite simply have outdated hardware. Now, would I say that the outdated hardware is the reason that the game is running the way that it is? No, I don't think that's it. I think that there are some definitely optimization issues, that this could have potentially used a couple of more months in the oven to do optimization. It's actually disappointing because, imagine if instead of releasing on the 25th of February, right? Because I know that the game's been delayed. I'm actually curious. Would you guys have preferred the game was delayed more if it meant that you got a better experience? Because a lot of time there are people that are just give it to me now, give it to me now. They're ravenous for it, and I understand. I understand that people they just want their game and they want it fast. But to me, whenever it comes to pushing back a game, I'll always be yeah, push it back, push it back, push it back 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, push it back. Just push it back a little bit and make sure that when it comes out, it's perfect. Because, like, imagine if Elden Ring was to come out and it wouldn't have any performance issues whatsoever. Because that's the thing that a lot of people are going to remember from the launch of Elden Ring. Not everybody, but a lot of people will remember that it's like, oh man, Elden Ring came out and had all those performance issues. Like, the negative stuff sticks in people's minds much more than the positive. A lot of people maybe will not remember as fondly the moments that they were surprised by the game, which, let me tell you, I've been surprised plenty of times with Elden Ring. There's been a lot of things that I was just like, and if you're watching the blind playthrough, you'll see those. I was like, oh crap, what? It's just like, this is a game that is rife with experimentation. And that's something that I love. I love experimenting. I love exploring. I love discovering. And the feeling of discovery in Elden Ring is fantastic, which is one of the reasons why I'm super scared of like getting stuff spoiled for me, and why I'm super respectful of trying to spoil things for people. Some people have complained about one of the things that I talked about in my video, which I didn't consider to be a spoiler, but at the same time, some people are like, okay, that thing was a little bit too much, and I apologize for that. Because, you know, like I said, even though I didn't think that was a big deal, for a lot of people it was, and I'm really, really sorry, and I apologize, and I will always try to do better when it comes to that. But it's just like, when you have a game that has so many pluses to it, to just have that stain on it of the performance problems that the game launched with, I think is really unfortunate. And these performance problems are not just on PC. Like, I'm seeing a lot of people say, PS5, excellent, no problem whatsoever. And it's like, see, I played on PS5 now. You can't say that. As much as I usually prefer to play stuff on consoles. You guys know me, but it's not as smooth as I've been seeing people say. So, like, all of these people that are complaining about performance issues, they have a point. I want to make sure that people understand that they have a point. It is a fair point, and it is something that, particularly on the PC side of things, is going to vary wildly. Because, like, if you have an experience like what I'm having, I have a 6900 XT. I have a really good processor. I don't know the exact specs of my processor. It's a really good processor, right? I have a really good processor, really good GPU, and I still have these stutters that everybody is complaining about. They're not terrible for me. Like, just every now and then it'll stutter a little bit and go back to normal. It's not a big deal. But for other people that have, because of the changes in hardware, they can be having a much more terrible experience. Like I gave the example of Co Carnage, which I would not imagine Co Carnage's setup to be bad, right? I don't think Co Carnage is running around in like a friggin' 2070. I don't think that's the case. I think Co Carnage is probably running like the latest and greatest GPUs on his setup. I wouldn't imagine anything else, right? And if in his setup he's getting like these crazy locks, then there's something wrong. There's definitely something wrong. And again, this is like varying to the point where for some people the game can be actually unplayable. And no, I don't think that's acceptable, and I definitely think that people should get a refund if that is the case, which sucks, which is why I feel like, dude, why wouldn't they just delay it a little bit more and do a little bit more optimization? Could this be even getting caused by the Nouveau? Because we've definitely seen cases of stuff like the Nouveau, or maybe even the anti-cheat software. We've definitely seen cases of this type of software being much more intrusive than it should, utilizing more resources than it should. And I genuinely don't understand why people still use the Nouveau. Like, you can complain and whine about piracy on PC all you want, but at the end of the day, what you're doing is like, okay, so in order to prevent people from stealing our software, we're going to make everybody that buys our software legally suffer the consequences. Because at the end of the day, listen, let me tell you, publishers, unless your game's always online, it's going to get cracked. I don't care how much software you put into it. Like, you can put the Nouveau times 10, okay? You can put like the Super Saiyan version of the Nouveau into your software. It doesn't matter. It's going to get cracked. And guess what? Now the people that steal your software are having a better experience than the people who legally purchased your software. So, like, I would almost just, like, make an appeal to these companies. Like, seriously, just don't mess around with anti-piracy software that makes performance worse. Again, I'm not saying that the Nouveau is what's causing it, because I just don't know. I don't know if it's the Nouveau. I don't know if it's anti-cheat. I just know that if you remove these two things, people would get a better idea of what is exactly causing the issue. Anyway, so there's performance issues in the game. There's performance issues in the PlayStation 5 version as well. In the PlayStation 5 version as well, specifically, there's a lot of pop-in. And not just pop-in, there is definitely an issue with frame pacing, which is weird. Like in some situations, like frames just drop and then they go back up and then just drop and go back up. And it's very minor, though. Like, not everybody's going to be able to tell because there's some people out there that can't tell the difference between 30 FPS and 60 FPS. It's like... But not everybody's going to be able to tell, but I could instantly tell. Like, I was playing it on PS5 and I was like, there's something weird going on with the frames. And this doesn't happen on PC. Because, like, in my case, I have the occasional stutters, but those are occasional. Whenever the game is not stuttering, it's running smooth. And on PlayStation, those frame pacing things, they seem to happen more often. And there's pop-in. Like, I've seen grass disappear and reappear, and this is with the latest patch, which is like 1.02.1 or something, which I believe was the latest patch. It was actually installed this morning into my game. And again, I don't know why. Because I don't think it's because of visual fidelity, because, you know, the game looks good, but it's not going to blow your mind. But yeah, there's issues there, and that criticism is valid. I still don't think that it's something that you just like, 0 out of 10. But that's just me, you know, to each their own, do whatever you want. Now, I want to move on from the performance issues and talk about another complaint that people have, and that is reused assets. Now, when it comes to the complaint of reused assets, it's like, look, have you seen the size of this game? Would you rather the game was 1/10 the size with all new animations? Actual question. Because that would potentially be what it took. They reused some of the assets that they've used in previous games, and by doing this, they didn't have to spend as much time working on animations and all of this crazy stuff, and instead, they were able to just create more content, and they've definitely created a ton of content. And I do mean that. Like, I think a lot of people underestimate how big this game is. This game constantly shows you, if you're playing through it, right? It constantly shows you that the sense of scale that you get from this and just the depth that you have in each individual is like, look, I've been playing the game for like 30 hours at this point. I've barely left the starter areas. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm still discovering new things in Limgrave. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be recording some more episodes today, and I'm going to be, you know, going back to Limgrave to do some stuff that I just noticed that I missed. It's wild. It's completely wild. And there's other stuff that I don't even want to talk about because I want to avoid talking about spoilers. But, dude, this game is massive. It's huge. And reusing the assets, I don't think it's as big a deal as a lot of people make it out to be. Are the attack animations the same? Some of them are, but the attack mechanics have actually been reworked, so you don't just spam attacks until you run out of stamina. You do attacks and they have like an actual combo. So like depending on the weapon, it might have a 3-attack combo, 4-attack combo, even spell casting in a way. It's like combo based. So there's a lot of new mechanical stuff that they've implemented into the game, and the reusing of assets does not bother me at all. Like a lot of people point out, oh look, it's the same door opening animation. And it's like, do you need a new door opening animation? Is that what you need? Do you want them to like rework some of the excellent animations that they've done in previous Souls games just so that you get a different one? Not necessarily a better one, just a different one. I think content is king, is what I think when it comes to that stuff, and the sheer amount of content they delivered with this game. I never even think about the fact that they're reusing assets. Now, some people also talk about the lack of guidance in the open world, which is something that was also brought up by Jason Schreier. He advises people to get like push out a notepad or something, or a text edit, so that you can be taking notes while you're playing the game. And I'm gonna be real, I like that. And I understand that a lot of people, they're used to, you know, traditional open world games, which is something that I don't like nearly as much. Like, as a matter of fact, that was one of the complaints that I had back in the day when I, you know, I played Assassin's Creed, and then I would check out other games, and they would all basically just like copy pasta Assassin's Creed mechanics, where it's like, oh, here's your to-do list with all, which is actually one of the complaints that I've had about Horizon Zero Dawn back when that came out. I'm talking about Forbidden West. Forbidden West also has this, but like in Zero Dawn, one of my problems with it is just like, okay, it's got like this very static open world formula, whereas, okay, here's where all the things are, here's where all the fun activities are, here's like all of your rides at the theme park, and here's your to-do list, and you go through your to-do list and you do all of your chores, and it's like, I'm not a fan of that formula personally. And you're talking to someone who plays MMOs, and MMOs, they basically do that all the friggin' time. And it's like, it doesn't bother me too much, but I'm not the biggest fan of that. So the fact that they don't do that in Elden Ring, or in any Souls game for that matter, I prefer it that way. As a matter of fact, when it comes to this lack of guidance stuff, there was someone who even brought up in one of their reviews, is like, have you guys even played Red Dead Redemption 2? And when that comment came up, I was like, oh, I mean, if that's what we're doing, if we're comparing a Souls-like to Red Dead Redemption 2, I mean, we might as well compare it to friggin' Forza Horizon. You might as well say, if you guys even played Forza Horizon, because it has about as much to do with Elden Ring as Red Dead. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a fundamentally different game. I'm not saying that it's better or that it's worse. I'm saying that I personally like more Elden Ring. And I did finish Red Dead Redemption 2, by the way. I played the entirety of it. And I thought it was a cool game, but it's not like my favorite type of game to play personally. You know, it's not what I look for in an open world, is like this, all of these to-do lists and whatnot. I much prefer have an open-ended form of exploration. And for a lot of people, I feel like nowadays people are going back to that mentality of they want more and more guidance in video games. And it's like, look, I want guidance in video games to a certain point, but there are some games to which the figuring it out is part of the game. And that has always been a core aspect of Souls games. And I know that that's not an excuse, because a lot of people will be quick to bring up, well, that's not an excuse. They should, do things the way that games are being designed. This is 2022. They should get with the times. And it's like, I don't feel like every game needs to get with the times. And this is not me making excuses for Elden Ring. I mean, you saw the way that I talked about performance. I'm not going to make excuses for this game. I also feel that by the way, while we're on that, I also feel that the combat system, while good, it is a little bit long in the tooth, for sure. I get that. I get that a lot. And I understand that type of criticism. Some of the times that I was doing combat in Elden Ring, I was thinking to myself, I wish they would change a couple of more things with the combat system, because this is familiar and it's good and I like it a lot, but there are definitely things in here that could be improved to make it a little bit more visceral. And I know that visceral is one of those words, but give it a little bit more freeing, make it so that I don't have to struggle with the camera as much and whatnot, even though this is one of the more free-flowing combats that we've had in Souls-like. I mean, some people will say they like Bloodborne better, or they like Sekiro better. I like Elden Ring a lot, but then again, I'm not making like the comparison which one is better at this point. I'll have to go through a few months before I like order Elden Ring in my list of Souls games. But anyway, besides the point, back to the point about guidance. I don't feel like every game needs to conform to what people consider to be the standard of open world games. As a matter of fact, I think that's a bad thing, because I personally don't like it. I'm sorry, I don't like it. I don't like to-do lists. I don't like chore lists. I think that's boring. And I understand that for a lot of people, they like that. They want that guidance. They want to know that they've went through all of the rides in the theme park. And I don't. As a matter of fact, one of the more magical things to me when I go through a Souls game is that I go through it, and then by the time I'm done, I then go and I check online to see that I missed stuff. And then if I miss stuff, I'm like, oh, I want to go and do that now, and I want to check out that zone. Like in Dark Souls 1, I missed Painted World of Aramis. In Dark Souls 2, I probably missed a ton of stuff. I don't even remember how much I missed in 2. In in Bloodborne, I missed Canehurst. I went through the entirety of Bloodborne, never went to Canehurst. So it's like, I miss stuff all the time in these games, but the joy is to then go back and do it again and experience that other thing. And I know that that's not for everybody, because a lot of people, they want to play a Souls game once and they want to be done with it. And I get it. And you want to make sure that you see all of the rides, but you need to understand, there is a community around Souls games that is formed around exploring stuff. And we explore stuff and we figure stuff out together. Like, people go on forums and they talk about, okay, I've done this quest line, I've had this outcome, I've done this thing. Like, do you think that the first person that played through Dark Souls was able to see the events of the Onion Knight? I forget his name now. Siegmeyer. You think that the first person that played through Dark Souls, the very first actual user that played through Dark Souls, was able to see Siegmeyer's quest in its entirety? Of course not. They might have seen one of the variations. They might have not even evolved the quest at all. They might have never known about Siegland and, the stuff that happens in the Great Hollow. But that's part of the magic of these games. That's part of the magic. And it's like, if you're someone that wants to play through the game, get to the end, and make sure that you've seen everything, then it's like, look, you can either look up a guide online, or you can wait for a couple of months and then just follow a walkthrough. Or, if you want to experience the joy of discovery, this part comes with it. Why do you think that discovering something in a Souls game is so meaningful? It is precisely because the game doesn't friggin' stab you in the face with a goddamn post-it note letting you know, hey, make sure to check out this ride. Hey, make sure to go to this location. It doesn't beat you over the head with stuff. That's part of the charm. As a matter of fact, I think that Souls games have been becoming increasingly bashing people over the head with mechanics. Because, like, if you look, for instance, at Demon Souls, right? If you start Demon Souls, there's no tutorial pop-ups. There's no pop-ups at all. There's messages in the ground that you can click to read. This game, I have to turn off the tutorial. Like, when I was playing on PlayStation 5, I had to turn off the tutorials because I was like, I've seen, oh my God, geez. It was then that I realized there's like friggin' 20 different pop-ups. Oh, by the way, here's how to equip skills. Here's how to do this. Here's how to do that. It's like, I don't want that. I want to figure stuff out. And I think that's much more interesting than having everything cookie cutter spoon-fed to you. And then there's people that are going to be, no, I want Elden Ring and I want stuff like they do in the other games. It's like, listen, let me explain to you. For every Elden Ring type game, there's literally a million other open world games. Go play one of the other ones. Like, I'm sorry that sometimes it has to be like this, but sometimes it does. Because, like, listen, I accept the criticism that was made the performance of the game. I completely agree. You guys are 1,000% correct. There's some definite performance issues with the game. Okay? I don't agree with the reused assets problem. In terms of visuals, there are people saying that, like, oh, it's got PS3 visuals. That I also don't agree with. It's like, whatever, dude. If that's the level of discourse we're having, it's not even worth talking about it. But the lack of guidance, I'm like, no, that's part of the essence. That's the joy of discovery that you get from just exploring these games. And you can see it. If you watch my blind playthrough, you can see it stamped in my face whenever I figure something out, whenever I discover a new zone, whenever I go to a place that wows me, whenever there's a special trap that happens that, something different, and I'm just like, what? Like, you can see it. And I'm sorry that maybe it's not for everyone, that, not everybody likes surprises, but that is the Elden Ring core audience. And I've actually started like a document file of my own where I've been like typing all kinds of notes and whatnot. And that is interesting to me personally. I'm not saying that everybody has to like the same things I do, but at the same time, I don't want the game to just like be about having like a bunch of quests on the right-hand side. Like, there are games that I play where I do that. When I'm coming to a From Software Souls game, that's the last thing I want. So, in that one, I don't agree. But those are like the main criticisms that I've seen for Elden Ring. And again, the performance stuff, I definitely agree with. There's definitely some problems, and it makes me a little bit sad that that is going to be what a lot of people are going to be remembering from Elden Ring. But yeah, they're right. There are performance problems. And I'm actually not on the worst end of that with my particular PC. But there are people who are having a really bad experience. And they should not be their experience should not be invalidated just because somebody else has it better. And I hope that they can fix these performance issues sooner rather than later. If I can make a recommendation, get rid of the Nouveau as fast as humanly possible, like actually delete it right now after you watch this video. If you're someone who's responsible for maintaining this game and patching this game, like just straight up go into the code and scrap the Nouveau and then send a picture with 2 middle fingers to the company that sold you this garbage ass software, because you're not preventing you might be preventing piracy for like 2 or 3 days, but ultimately the game's going to get cracked, and what is happening right now is that the people who paid money for your game are having a worse experience. So, yeah, consider that. Anyways, I'm going to go back to actually recording my blind playthrough because, yeah, I can't wait to jump back in. Thank you all very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit it up with a like. Otherwise, hit it up with a dislike. Unfortunately, YouTube won't show it anymore, even though there is the extension and all that. I would recommend you guys install that extension if you use Chrome. I don't know how it would work on mobile, but you definitely should be able to see the dislikes. Either way, if you want to stay up to date with my Elden Ring coverage, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, all of that jazz. And whenever we have new Monster Hunter news, I'll be sure to report on those as well. Thank you all very much for hanging out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.